Let us look at the board right now. Laura Collins is preparing for a highly anticipated trip to Ireland. With Jen Sidwell finally sitting behind bars and both Sonny Corinthos and Jason Morgan actively trying to step away from the violent mob life to focus on their families, Laura believes she is leaving Port Charles in a state of unprecedented peace and stability. She looks around and sees a town that is finally healing. But a city still needs a mayor to function, and Laura is about to make a hasty, potentially fatal decision. She is going to appoint Ezra as the deputy mayor, handing him the absolute authority to make all executive decisions and handle all town issues in her absence. She thinks she is leaving the town in highly capable, trustworthy hands. She believes she has secured the future of Port Charles while she takes a much-needed step back. But she is entirely blind to the wolves circling the perimeter. Looking ahead, the first scenario we have to explore is the complete corporate and intelligence takeover of Port Charles. If this happens, who truly benefits? The unholy trinity of Drew Kane, Willow Kane, and Jack Brennan. We know that Drew and Willow are still a massive menace to the town, operating with a ruthless, unchecked ambition that has alienated them from their former allies. Brennan, on the other hand, is playing a much larger game. He wants the WSB to have absolute legal and political dominance over the town. There is a massive chance that they will target Ezra the very second Laura's plane takes off for Ireland. Why? Because Ezra has a filthy, buried past. He used to work directly with Jen Sidwell. If that dark secret ever sees the light of day, Ezra's political career is dead on arrival, and he could face severe criminal charges. But the bigger consequence may be that Laura Collins actually knew about this past and actively chose to cover it up to give Ezra a second chance. If you ask me, Drew, Willow, and Brennan are not going to expose Ezra to the press. They are going to weaponize him. They will use this dark secret to ruthlessly blackmail Ezra, turning him into their ultimate puppet mayor. Imagine the sheer terror of Ezra sitting in the mayor's office, sweating bullets, while Drew and Brennan pull his strings from the shadows, forcing him to pass laws, rezone districts, and make executive orders that hand Port Charles over to the WSB and the Canes on a silver platter. The story could be heading toward a complete authoritarian regime masquerading as a democratic local government, with Willow Kane smiling for the cameras while ruthlessly crushing anyone who dares to stand in their way. This could lead to a Port Charles where the police force is entirely neutered and WSB agents roam the streets with total impunity. But what if we are thinking too small? What happens next may be a tragedy on a global scale that shatters the very foundation of the show. Let us pivot to a completely different future, one that changes the entire landscape and removes the moral compass of Port Charles forever. Laura arrives in Ireland, expecting a peaceful getaway or perhaps a quiet reunion, only to discover a soul-crushing, devastating betrayal. She finds out that her beloved husband, Kevin Collins, has betrayed her, falling in love with another woman in Ireland. The emotional devastation of this discovery alone would be enough to break her spirit and send her into a downward spiral. But there is a chance that this heartbreak is merely the prelude to something far more sinister. What if her emotional destruction is immediately followed by her physical demise? I keep looking at the power players back home. Drew, Willow, and Brennan are highly intelligent. They know that their puppet regime with Ezra only lasts as long as Laura is out of town. The second she returns and realizes what Ezra has done, she can fire him, expose the blackmail, and completely dismantle their corrupt empire. So, what if they decide she can never, ever return? This could lead to Brennan using his deep, dark WSB connections or Drew using his massive corporate mercenary funds to hire a professional hitman in Ireland. They wait until Laura is completely isolated, emotionally destroyed by Kevin's infidelity, and wandering the Irish countryside in a daze, and then they strike. Laura Collins, the legendary matriarch of Port Charles, assassinated in cold blood on foreign soil, just so a corrupt political alliance can maintain their stranglehold back home. This would not just be a minor variation in the plot. This would be a monumental, paradigm-shifting event that rips the heart out of the show and turns Drew and Willow into irredeemable, bloodthirsty villains. Now, let us explore the most unexpected possibility. The third future is the absolute wild card, the scenario that flips the entire narrative on its head. Let us assume the assassination plot in Ireland goes forward, but it triggers an apocalyptic blowback that no one, not even Jack Brennan, could have anticipated. Drew, Willow, and Brennan think they are securing their absolute power by eliminating Laura, but the bigger consequence may be that they awaken the sleeping giants they thought were gone for good. Sonny Corinthos and Jason Morgan have been trying so hard to leave the mob life behind to find peace and focus on their children. But if they find out that Laura Collins, a woman they both deeply respect, revere, and view as family, was murdered by a corporate WSB conspiracy orchestrated by Drew Kane, all bets are entirely off. There is a chance that Laura's tragic death turns her into a powerful martyr that unites the fractured, dormant underworld of Port Charles. Jason Morgan would not just sit back and let his own twin brother get away with ordering a hit on the mayor. Sonny Corinthos would not let Jack Brennan's WSB faction take over his streets and his territory. The story could be heading toward a massive, bloody, all-out civil war. Ezra, the puppet mayor, would be caught right in the crossfire, likely targeted by Jason for his cowardly complicity in the cover-up. Instead of gaining total control, Drew, Willow, and Brennan would suddenly find themselves hunted by the most dangerous, lethal men in town. It is a path that few are predicting right now, but the poetic, tragic justice of Jason Morgan returning to his violent, lethal ways, specifically to hunt down and destroy his own brother to avenge Laura Collins, is incredibly compelling and would make for legendary television. If you ask me, the path that feels most likely is a harrowing combination of the political blackmail and the devastating betrayal in Ireland. I keep coming back to the idea that Laura Collins eventually has to face the severe consequences of her own blind spots and her endless capacity for forgiveness. She covered up Ezra's dirty past with Jen Sidwell because she desperately wanted to believe in his redemption, much like she always tries to see the good in people, even when they do not deserve it. But Port Charles is currently far too ruthless and unforgiving for that kind of optimism. The path that makes the most sense is Drew, Willow, and Brennan successfully, quietly turning Ezra into a terrified puppet, while Laura is systematically arced down in Ireland by Kevin's shocking infidelity. The assassination plot feels like the dark, inevitable climax of Drew Kane's recent descent into madness and villainy. We have watched Drew and Willow become increasingly comfortable with crossing ethical lines, lying, scheming, and destroying lives to get what they want. Ordering a hit on the mayor to protect their newfound absolute political power is the logical, albeit terrifying, next step in their dark character trajectories. It gives Jack Brennan the WSB stronghold he so desperately craves. It gives Willow Kane the absolute untouchable security she demands for her family. And it firmly, permanently establishes Drew Kane as the ultimate big bad of this new era of General Hospital. But let us look even further down the road, beyond the immediate bloodshed and heartbreak. If that dark scenario actually happens, if Laura Collins is taken out in Ireland and Ezra is officially installed as the permanent, completely controlled mayor of Port Charles, what comes after that? The long-term fallout would be absolutely staggering and would touch every single character on the canvas. First of all, how does Kevin Collins react? Does his overwhelming guilt over betraying Laura right before her brutal death drive him to absolute madness? Could the trauma and self-hatred finally bring out the dormant psychopathic darkness of his twin brother, Ryan Chamberlain, within him? Imagine a grief-stricken, psychotic Kevin returning to Port Charles seeking bloody vengeance against the people who ordered the hit on his wife. And what about Anna Devane? As the chief of police, she is not going to blindly accept a fabricated WSB report that Laura was killed in a random, tragic mugging in Ireland. Anna will dig. She will investigate. And when she realizes the WSB, her own former agency, is intimately involved alongside Jack Brennan, we are looking at a rogue, furious police chief going to war against a massive federal intelligence agency. Furthermore, how long can a man like Ezra actually hold up under the immense, crushing, psychological pressure of being blackmailed by ruthless murderers? The next shockwave will undoubtedly be Ezra's inevitable, spectacular mental collapse. When the puppet strings finally snap, when Ezra can no longer handle the guilt of betraying Laura and selling out his town, he might blow the whistle on the entire operation or he might take his own life in a desperate bid to escape. When that happens, the entire town will be caught in the violent whiplash. The future of Port Charles is not the peace and quiet that Laura, Sonny, and Jason are hoping for. It is a ticking time bomb of severe political corruption, international assassination, devastating romantic betrayal, and an impending war that will leave no family untouched.
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.